My yearning for your love has wounded my poor soul, and every other kind of love is now no love at all. The love inside my heart, the air that fills my breath, glorious light inside my mind, my only love and strength. I trust your love to guide me right into your arms, to hold me tight. I cannot bear to be apart. I am ablaze with your sweet love, my God.
I don't know why at 12 years old, but for some reason it just, cut my heart, and I realized how far away from God I really was, and it was this paradox of feeling very far away from God and knowing how this sense of being completely lost without Him, and at the same exact time feeling His love. And again, I don't really know why that happened, but it set me on a different course. It was a cassette tape of somebody from Australia who was talking about the holiness of God and pride in the human heart, and how impossible it is to, I guess, impress God, with our supposed self-righteousness, and just changed everything. It changed my priorities, it changed what I thought about, it changed what I read, it changed the music I listened to, it changed how I saw people. I could hear my own thoughts. I started to hear my thoughts, if I would judge someone, all of a sudden I was aware of it, whereas before I would be judging them, but I wouldn't be aware of it. And now I could hear this judgment, and I could feel this sense of wanting to repent of this and wanting to be cleansed and not participate in those things. And then a few years later, forgiveness was a really huge thing I had to face. And there were just these moments, these moments where things like this would kind of come, and I'd have to wrestle with them for a while. But it was all, again, a paradox, because there was this sense of God's love that was present through all of it. It was this sense of God showing me my sins, not to condemn me, but to give me an opportunity to be healed. So there was always a sense of God's love present in all of it. The journey to Orthodoxy was a long journey in many ways. I'd read the scriptures a lot as a young child, and loved God very much, especially, after the age of 12, as I said, having that transition in my life. But it was visiting Rome, Italy, and Romania, what kind of started it off. And being there it just changed something. I don't know. I mean, in America, it's a very young country, and there's not a lot of history there. So we're detached from history. And so to be physically in Rome at the Colosseum and at these various places where there were Christian martyrs, and it does something. And I realized that I just didn't really know the history of Christianity, and I loved Christ and I loved the scriptures, but I didn't know the history. So I started reading, and I spent about 4 years really researching and searching and looking for how did this all come about. And then by God's grace, eventually, I started to learn about the Orthodox Church, and it was because I had read a lot about the history that helped me a lot, because I was coming into it understanding that the way the Orthodox Church lives is a holy tradition from the very beginning. My whole family and myself were baptized in Los Angeles in 2012, and that was amazing. It was a wonderful, wonderful church, and the priest who catechized us and baptized us was just wonderful. And every day, my wife and I in particular, and our children, we're so thankful to be in the Orthodox Church. It's sort of something we can't even articulate, the beauty and the grace, the fullness that's present in the church. Well, I'm very thankful because Elisa, my wife, is incredible, and she's such a deep, thoughtful person, and she loves God very much. So there was only about 6 weeks maybe where we were not quite in sync. But, I would just share some of the books I was reading, some of the things I was discovering, and very quickly she just put her whole heart and soul into it. And she's always reading the lives of the saints and teaching the children, and she teaches at the school that our kids go to, and she teaches sacred studies, and she's put her whole self into the faith in such a beautiful and simple and humble way, and that's a huge blessing, because I know there are marriages where one person is journeying towards the church and the other one isn't, and it can be very difficult for a family. And so I'm extremely grateful, and my kids responded to it so well. They love it. We want our home to be an extension of the church. We want it to have the same feeling. We don't want our kids to walk into a church and feel like this is the only time where they feel, the presence of God, or feel like this, okay, now we're going to be holy, and then go home and it's chaos, Like, we want that same feeling to be in the home. And that's one of the beautiful things about visiting the Holy Mountain and the monasteries is it actually helps, understand just through experience the feeling that the home can feel like that, can have that same kind of, peaceful rhythm, if there's harmony with the parents primarily. So,
how has the Orthodox faith changed your perception of life and your attitude towards your art? Either acting or singing.
Yeah. Well, like most things for me, the Orthodox faith has it's felt like a fulfillment of things. I told my friends as we were journeying into the church, my friends who aren't Orthodox, I said, I don't feel like I'm really converting as much as I feel like I've always been Orthodox. I just didn't know it. And now I'm discovering more of the fullness of this love for Christ and the original faith. And I feel like that also with art and with my marriage. I mean, we got married long before we discovered the Orthodox Church, but we had an instinct towards marriage being a sacrament. Now, we might not have known the terminology, we might not have understood exactly the way the church sees it, but in our hearts we were giving what we had to God. We were saying, we're taking this seriously. This is coming from a very deep place of love, and we're asking Christ to be a part of our marriage, to be the center of our marriage. And with acting, it was the same way, or music, you know, even before we discovered the church, I was asking God, how do I approach my art in a way that, because I was doing a lot of dark roles, you know, like I was playing a abusive boyfriend or a heroin addict or, you know, even a serial killer or things like this, and I was asking God, how do I perform these things without letting it you know, damage me psychologically or whatever, affect me in a negative way. And so I began to pray as my preparation, and I began to actually pray for other people when I was doing certain scenes. So if I was portraying a heroin addict, I would pray for people that were addicted to drugs, that this, you know, film or story would be a parable that would either keep someone from going down that path, or perhaps help someone who is struggling with addiction to be set free. And so then reading the fathers of the church and digging into the depth, you know, more of Christian history, and just seeing that it was kind of mind-blowing that they would say the whole world is a sacrament, the whole world is a mystery, and Christ came to sanctify the world. It's not a rejection of the physical, it's a sanctification of, it's the incarnation, it's the unseen God becoming man and sanctifying the world. It's like the prayer, O heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of truth, who are everywhere present and fillest all things. It was more the external things that were difficult. When you don't grow up with icons, or you don't grow up with, you know, the liturgy, and you know, you kind of go, what is going on here? And one of the things I remember praying early on, which was a very important moment for me, was I remember being in the church and struggling a little bit, just feeling comfortable and understanding what's happening. And I remember in my heart there was this thing saying, help me to know you and to worship you for who you really are, not for who I want you to be, you know? So in some sense it's saying, I don't want my own version of who you are. I want to know who you truly are. And that's what the church is. The church is not giving us what we want to hear. It's telling us the truth. It's giving us the holy revelation. And the tradition doesn't change, you know, for 2,000 years, which is both humbling and intimidating, but really beautiful and freeing as well. It doesn't change with the culture, with time. The whole world can go into chaos, and the church is just still, you know, just like an icon. Christ is just there. And he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I've never experienced that to that extent except in the Orthodox Church. It's very healing and very comforting.
Would you play the role of Jesus Christ if you were asked to?
I wouldn't do it without a lot of prayer and consideration, because I think it's also a cross that one would be asked to carry, and so only if you know, with prayer and a lot of confirmation. But you know, if it was something I was called to do, then, you know, like anything else, then by God's grace, I would, you know, do the sign of the cross and proceed, you know.
And the Emmy goes to Jonathan Jackson, General Hospital.
So thank you all very much. Thank you to the Academy, and also thank you to all the monks on Mount Athos who are ceaselessly praying for the life of the world. Thank you.
We saw that you offered your Emmy Award at to Virgin Mary this year.
Yeah.
What did this mean to you, and how did you feel it to do this?
Well, in 2012, when I won the Emmy Award, I thanked the monks of Mount Athos for ceaselessly praying for the life of the world, and yeah, it just you know, again, it's very paradoxical, because those moments are they can simply be vainglory, you know, and so I thought, okay, I have 30 seconds to say something, and
you chose to say this.
Yeah, and do the sign of the cross and thank the Holy Trinity, and because I knew, you know, these are, you know, spiritually they're kind of dangerous moments in some sense, and you want to say something. I thought, okay, if there's something I could say from that I would want my children to hear. And the other thing, it was very personal for me, because I could feel the prayers of the Holy Mountain with me. This was before I'd ever been there. This is just from reading about the Holy Mountain, but I could feel their prayers with me somehow, upholding me, and it was like I just wanted to thank them, you know, because I don't know where the world would be, as difficult and as chaotic as it is. I can't even imagine where we would be without their prayers, because I truly believe their prayers are upholding the world, really, in grace.
Σήμερα έχουμε μαζί μας και έναν ηθοποιό, Ορθόδοξο, Αμερικανό, τον κύριο Τζοναθαν Τζακσον, ο οποίος δεν είναι η πρώτη φορά που στο Άγιον Όρος, συνδέεται μαζί μας, και η οικογένεια του την ξέρω καλά. Όταν έρθει πηγαίνω έξω και τους βλέπω, και σήμερα ήρθε εδώ και μας παρουσιάζει μια έκπληξη. Πήρε το πρώτο βραβείο σε όλη την Αμερική της ηθοποιίας και το έταξε να το φέρει στη Μονή Βατοπεδίου. Το πρώτο βραβείο το έταξε να το δώσει στο Άγιον Όρος, και επειδή συνδέθη με τη Μονή Βατοπεδίου, το δίνει στο Βατοπέδι, και του είπα να το δώσει στα χέρια του Επισκόπου που είναι παρόν, και αυτός είναι εξ Αμερικής, εκεί υπηρετεί, και να το βάλουμε στην κυρία Θεοτόκο.
So it was just sort of a natural fulfillment of that moment. It was just this sense of, like, you know, a humble offering of dedicating it to the Panaia and her garden of the Holy Mountain, and so it was just, I guess it was just a fulfillment of that. And, you know, years later, going to the Holy Mountain and now being there a few times and being close, you know, with some of the fathers there, and it just felt like something to offer. Yeah. Very blessed to get married at a young age. I was 20 when I got married, and I always felt like I was going to be a young father, and I'm very grateful that happened. Marriage cannot be understood from a purely human understanding. I think that in society, people tend to look at marriage as sort of they use words like settling down, ball and chain, losing your freedom. Those things don't sound very enticing. But the church calls it a mystery. It's a sacrament. And it's an image of the kingdom of heaven. Christ in the Gospels is referred to as the bridegroom, and the church is the bride. He talks of parables about wedding feasts. His first miracle was at a wedding, showing us how much he loves the sacrament of marriage. And I think that people don't believe enough in romance. C.S. Lewis talked about this in one of his books, is that we don't desire enough, and we settle for what is less than wonderful, what is less than beautiful. For me, marriage is the ultimate romance, and it's not simply between two people. It's a sacred romance where the presence of God is with you, mystically uniting two people. And it's we're given to each other so that we can both help each other work out our salvation. So when you take the vision of heaven out of marriage and just put it in human terms, two people hoping to like each other forever, love each other forever, unless they don't feel like it anymore, it doesn't work. But when Christ is there, it just gets more and more beautiful over time. And it extends to eternity. Yes, yes. And that was something particular that my wife and I learned coming into the church. We had our marriage blessed in the church, which was an incredible experience. And one of the beautiful things was the sort of, I guess you would say, ascetical reality to marriage. That it's a beautiful way in which God helps us learn what love is, learn how to be humble, how to be patient, how to be forgiving, how to receive forgiveness. All of those things is in marriage. And I meet a lot of people that wait a long time to get married, and I think that there's something to be said for people to grow together. Nowadays it's career. I want to have a career, I want to make a lot of money, and then maybe someday I'll get married and have kids. And there's a whole part of the journey that you can miss out on together, growing together. At least in my experience, I was very blessed that God brought me my wife. But I'm extremely grateful for my wife, Elisa, and she brings so much joy and shows me so much of who Christ is. A tragedy, I would say, in the West. Alexander Schmemann said that the tragedy of separating the sacred from the secular is that we stole God away from the world. We took God out of the world and we put him only in churches. So what happens in society, in America, is people can go to church and they pray and we can feel holy and feel connected to God, and then we go to our work and that has nothing to do with God. That's work. What does that have to do with God? What does that have to do with prayer? This is my work. This is my family. I love my family, but I'll think about God when I'm going to church or when I'm doing something religious. So we have a intuitive schizophrenia. Everything's split, everything's divided. And one of the most beautiful things that I learned coming into the Orthodox Church was that the fathers of the Church taught that the whole world is a sacrament. The whole world is meant to be sanctified and brought into unity and oneness. So what that has meant for me as an actor, and as a young actor, as a child, I was 11 years old, I instinctively was trying to bring these things together because I loved God so much. And then I would be doing my work and I'd be doing scenes of great tragedy where I'd have to be crying and I was dealing with, why this person was, one of the storylines was about a young girl who was raped, and I had to walk through the emotions of helping this young girl heal from such a tragedy. And so I began to ask God, why? Why would you let this happen? It's a fictional story, but these things happen. And what I started to realize through these experiences was that God wanted to be a part of the whole experience, that I wasn't supposed to put all of that on pause, so to speak, and then go perform as an artist, but I was supposed to bring God into the performance. Becoming Orthodox has reinforced that and given me so much more clarity to be able to bring my relationship with God into those various moments. The Jesus prayer is very, very important for that, because it's so beautiful and it's so simple, and that can take place all the time. So whether I'm preparing for a scene, whether I'm rehearsing or performing, the Jesus prayer is with me. And also, one of the beautiful things that I discovered in that process was that it can also become a form of intercession for other people. So, for instance, if I was, playing, let's say, a heroin addict or someone who is struggling with suicide, that I can make the performance a prayer so that people who are struggling with those things could be released or perhaps prevented from going in those directions. So in that way, there was no difference between driving in my car to work and then stepping on the stage and performing, or being at my house reading a book about Christ, or walking into church. It's all one movement. It's all one continuous breath of being with God. That's the goal. And I think so many people they've never experienced that, particularly in the West and in America, because religion is its own thing. So people say, I'm not interested in religion. But ultimately, Orthodoxy is not a religion. It's real life. Yeah, and it's in the heart. So that is a very powerful thing that I'm so thankful to learn from the fathers of the Church, that the world is a sacrament. The whole world is a sacrament, and Christ is all in all.